Okay, so this morning I went and worked out, and I was working out with my buddy, and we were talking, and I was telling him about this sermon, and he said something that really it was perfect, and it actually fit better than the example I want to use. So this is how I can introduce the measuring stick here. So this is the standard. This is actually the standard, right? It's a 12-inch, 1-foot ruler. This is something that we even talk about. If aliens were ever to visit us, how would we talk to them? Through math, right? So some of you are like, hold on. He brought up aliens. Does he believe in aliens? I do not believe in aliens. But we do know that math is absolute, okay? We know this. 2 + 2 is 4 in all languages. There's no way getting around it. So this is the standard, okay? Even God gave instruction to Noah how to build a boat. Hey, Noah, you're going to do cubits, and the cubits here to here, and that's how he measured his gopher wood, okay? So this is standard. Now you'll say, well, Pastor Josh, this ruler looks pretty standard. It's not. It's actually off by 2 inches. I won't tell you which numbers are off. They all look good, don't they? They all look about the same. Wise guy, Adam, actually at the end of service was like, I know which ones it is. And he tells me, I'm like, yep. He counted. Obviously, he wasn't listening to my sermon, the first message. But there are 2 off. And the reason why there are 2 off is not by accident. It's truth. Here's the 2 right there. There they are. 2 marks are off because honestly, this is by foot, except 2 are off. So you would say, oh, Josh, actually, this is standard. It is. And well, it's not. Because this is actually the representation of the world. This is what the world has given us. And they have increased this perfect standard of a foot. And they keep increasing it. And my example is this. I've come across a lot of folks in my life. And again, I'm going to step on some toes this morning. And some of you kind of walk out of here and go, he was so mean to me. And I can't believe this, and he's just dogmatic. He's just trying to push his beliefs on me, and this is the way it has to be. Actually, I'm going to read word, and I'm going to use scripture, and I'm not going to use scripture to back my point. I'm not that guy. But we do need to be aware of some things, and here's my example. So I've come across people, and I'll say, hey, do you do drugs? And they go, no, I don't do drugs. And I'm like, sweet, good, standard, don't do drugs. Drugs bad. Then I'll come across people and I go, hey, do you do drugs? And they go, I do marijuana. And I'll go, I said, do you do like crack or cocaine? And they go, no. And I go, okay, good. You get the picture? Okay, so it's like, it's okay to do marijuana. Like we can justify and be like, it's just, it's a drug, but it's not necessarily, it's like, but no drugs is better. But if you're going to do a drug, marijuana is okay. You guys get it? So this is what happens with our life. In this culture and today's standards, things continue to keep growing. Things continue to decrease and desensitize us and our moral values. And it's sad because it's crept on us so fast that we are kind of oblivious to it. So oblivious that what you don't realize is actually choking you to death. There's a suffocation that's taking place. I was out one time at a movie with an evangelist that travels through here often, David Fleming. We love this guy, really smart. Out to a movie, he wanted to see Wolverine. I wanted to see Wolverine, and I knew it was a little bit different. Wolverine's a little more graphic than the rest of the comic guys. He's kind of up there with blood and guts and stuff. But there was a scene. There was a scene where 2 girls were in a bedroom with a guy. Now, they were clothed, so it was like, well, they were clothed, so that's good, right? But then all of a sudden, I saw David go. So then I go, like I'm choosing at this moment, like, what, and then I was like, because in my head I was thinking, well, they were clothed, they were decent, right? I mean, they were decent, so it's like, I've seen this before, been to the beach, been to Myrtle Beach, just seen a lot. I was like, whoa. And so afterwards we got to talk about it. And David mentioned to me, he said, it's one of those things, I've just made that rule and that guide in my life that I don't want to see those things. The only person I want to see dressed like that is my wife. That's pretty good, right? So some of you guys out here, if any of you are like, well, no, See? Back to the standard. Because if you're like, oh, big deal, and your wife's like, is it? Is it a big deal? You want to see other girls, huh? Turn your Bibles right now to Romans chapter 12, verse 2. Romans 12, verse 2. Man, this is great. I'm going to read it in two different versions. And some of you are like, is it the KJV version? No, it's the Message. It's like, this is the whole thing. Some of you are probably still sitting here kind of wondering why I didn't go 12 foot. I wanted to save $4, so I went with the 8 foot, by the way, too. Some of you, I think 12. I think you got the picture with 8, by the way. You don't really need 12. So we're going to read this first out of the NLT version, Romans chapter 12, verse 2, and then we're going to read it out of the Message. So here we go. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. Now in the Message version, I'm going to read verses 1 and 2, and here we go. Can't say it any better. This is awesome. So here's what I want you to do. God helping you. Take your everyday, ordinary life, your sleeping, eating, going to work, and walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. Embracing what God does for you is the best thing you can do for Him. Don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changed from the inside out. Readily recognize what He wants from you and quickly respond to it. Unlike the culture around you, always dragging you down to its level of immaturity, God brings the best out of you, develops well-formed maturity in you. It's pretty good stuff, you know? You really can't beat it. I go to Vegas every year. Some of you are like, what? I do. I go to hike. I ride on the coattails of the gamblers so I can get free airplane tickets, and then I drive straight out to Death Valley after I land. And so I've been to Vegas before the marketing slogan, and I've been to Vegas afterwards. And you'll say, what's the marketing slogan? I would say, what goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas, or what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So I've been there both times. You'll be like, well, Josh, you know, Las Vegas has always been known as the city of sin and all those things. Absolutely. But before this slogan actually was released and really marketed well, what happened was that the sin stayed in the casinos. Now when you go, the sin's everywhere. It's like, it's everywhere. Like when you walk out of the casino, it's there. Like there's just things going on constantly. Now I know some of you in this room maybe kind of go, well, geez, Pastor Josh, I enjoy going, and I don't see there's anything wrong with spending $100 in the casino, and I don't see any problems with that. Again, I'm going to step on some toes this morning, and I know I'm going to hurt some people's feelings, and they're going to walk out of here and be like, oh my gosh, he is that pastor. He's putting a strictness on me, and I can't be free and have fun, and I can't just do what I want. It's my money. By goodness, that's what I want to do with it. That's what I want to do with it. Hey, I agree. It is your money, and you can do whatever you want with it. And if you want to go to Vegas, by all means, go to Vegas. Because aren't I contributing to Vegas as well by showing up there? Eating out at the fast food restaurants, some of the nice restaurants? Aren't I contributing when I'm walking through the casinos? Absolutely. I'm right there with you. All right? That's just like me putting down $100 on the craps table. No different. It really isn't. I really don't see a difference in it. I don't. Because otherwise all I'm doing is justifying. I'm just flying out there to go hike. But I'm still supporting Las Vegas in some way, shape, or form to continue to keep growing. Some of you maybe have family members out in Vegas. Like, well, that's how they survive. Everyone who lives in Vegas is somehow associated to the casinos in some way. It's the heartbeat. That's the bloodline to the financial stability out there. I get it. But what's happened is there's been this standard of sin increase into our lives where we just kind of accept certain levels of it. We go, that's just how it is, and that's just the way the world is. I would do you an injustice this morning if I didn't bring out our own children into this. If we said, hey, ask your children what they feel is the standard, right? If you ask them, hey, how do you feel about this? Any topic, And they'll look at you and be like, oh, Mom, don't you know? That's just how it is. My children, we've chosen to not let them play video games during the weekday and just on the weekend during the schools. Now, during summer, it's like, oh, whatever, game's on. But what we want to do is we want them to study, and we want them to focus in on their schoolwork and not just basically zone out. But my kids will be like, but Bobby plays. And I go, but Bobby is probably smarter than you. So guess what? You're going to continue to keep doing your schoolwork until you're smarter than Bobby. And then my children finally become smarter than Bobby, and they let me know about it. And then I said, but now we're going to work on humility. But we choose to do this because we're setting a standard in our house to say, this is what it's going to be because we want you to focus in on your schoolwork. That's more important than those video games. So, yes, back to Vegas, because that's really what you want me to wrap up right now, because you want me to wrap up. Is going there and gambling wrong? Sure, absolutely. I'm telling you right now, this is not an easy message for Pastor Josh to preach, because next week, half of you could be like, I'm out. This church stinks. I'm gone. But let me give you an example of my Vegas experience before and after. So, Treasure Island is this great, amazing, great. I mean, it's a really cool hotel. I mean, it's cool because it's like a pirate ship. It's like any boy's dream, right? You walk in, you're like, like you walk into the actual casino, it looks like a pirate ship. It's cool. But outside, they put on a free show. And they do it like 2 or 3 times in a night. And at certain times, and they've got this gigantic, like, sea, like, dock-looking thing. They got this giant pirate ship over here and a giant pirate ship over here. And all of a sudden, when the show starts, and people are lined up forever, and the show starts. This was pre-marketing. And all of a sudden, like, the lights kick on, and the music rumbles, and it's so cool. Like, the pirate ship appears, and these swashbuckling men, and they got these big swords, and they're swinging around, and it's awesome. It's so cool. And they start fighting each other, and they like swing over to the next boat, and they do all this cool stuff, and they fall in the water. Clean, awesome, not a problem. After the marketing, oh, buddy. Pirate ships changed a little bit. It wasn't like 2 men boats. Now it was woman boat. But these women were like in bikinis swinging around on ropes. And some of you are like, what's wrong with that? I don't know. You tell me. Women swinging around on bikinis? Or in bikinis? That's kind of strange, isn't it? Isn't it? I mean, isn't that a little strange? So some of you are sitting here and like, oh, come on, it's not that big of a deal. But I've got to tell you guys, I think it kind of is a little bit of a big deal. It is a big deal. Some of the things that they do on the boat, and they find themselves in these awkward moments where they're like, oh, how did I find myself right here doing this? And you're like, really? Like, there's these innuendos that just kind of landslide over to like, oh, that's pretty cool, huh? Guys, and just hear me out. I'm not asking you guys to become like this Amish type lifestyle. I'm not asking you to like do all this stuff. I get this. I get it. But there's one thing that really rang true to me with my friend David, is that, he's sitting there, he's like, hey, I only want to see my wife like this. I only want to see my wife in that portrayal, because that to me makes it more special. Because if we start looking at the world and seeing their standard of marriage, is it going well? And I know some of you are like, well, now you just pointed out the world, what about the church? Absolutely, the church is included in this because the church is also conforming to this world. We don't look different than this world. There really isn't much difference. And it's sad that this has taken place. Because I know this is a hard thing to kind of agree to. As a pastor, I've got to stop fearing you guys and realizing I really just need to fear God. Because if I start fearing what I'm going to say out of this pulpit, and if it offends you and you don't come back, it's like, oh, God. But I got to be real truthful with you guys because it's like, hey, is it really good for me to sit around and be okay with images popping up on my TV screen that's inappropriate? Am I okay with this? Am I okay with certain songs and music and all the stuff that goes on? Like, are we okay with this? Is this really good? Because what happens is we slowly start creeping into it. We're like, yeah, this is not bad. It's just this. It's just this. It's just this. Here comes a saucy moment. Trying to find someone to use. I know everyone's going to start ducking. I'm only using guys right now. I'm not going to use JC. I used him last week. No. I know. He's like, God, no. Kenny. Kenny, I'm going to use you, and you got to be honest. It's going to be a hard one to be honest with. It is. It's going to be a hard one. I know some of you are kind of like, but you know, over in France, they have nude beaches. Like, and you know, France is pretty cool. No, it's not. France is not cool. Right? But like the French, you know, they've got these nude beaches, and it's nude beaches. What's the big deal about it? Kenny, you're a man. I'm a man. Let's be real honest with everyone right now. If you happen to be at this nude beach, and your wife's laying right beside you, and be honest, if a girl walks by you, are you going to look at her hoo-haws, yes or no? Huh? Most likely. Right? No one in this room, I don't care who you are, be sitting here and go like, no, I wouldn't do it. You're full of it. I know it because I'm a man and I'm the pastor of this church, and I'll tell you right now, if I ever was on a nude beach, I'd be like, and then I would leave because I'd be convicted because I've got the Holy Spirit living and dwelling inside of me. I'd be like, I probably wouldn't even have made it in the nude beach, but just the fact that it's truth, because that's what we're drawn to. I've had little kids who are youth who've come to me and they've said, Pastor Josh, I've got an addiction and I'm looking at things I shouldn't look at on the computer. And I look at him, I go, what are we going to do about it? He's like, man, I want to pray that this feeling leaves me. And I go, no, you don't. And he's kind of like, what do you mean? I was like, because when you get married, you can't look at your wife and be like, I prayed for it to leave a long time ago. Like, we can't pray this way. God actually gave us these emotions, and they're awesome, and they're good. The problem is we've got to learn how to control them by the standards that God's put in place. So it's accurately good and used at the right appropriate time. The problem is we've accepted the standard of this world, and we just think this is just the way it is, but it's not. We have to set ourselves up to say, hey, you know what? This isn't good. Let's put these things in front of us that will guide us so that we won't fall short. Otherwise, we just choke ourselves. And we eat little things and little stuff. And before you know it, it gets into deeper things. It all does. When I was in college, I decided to rush a fraternity. I didn't pledge. I just rushed it because I was kind of curious about what it was about. Clearly, it's a social gathering, and clearly I thought, hey, this could be something cool, and I could get to meet some people, and who knows? And so I went to a few of their parties to kind of get a feel of it. Some of my friends were there, and it was the Teeks. And so I was like, all right, I saw the Sig Eps. I went to Sig Eps, so I thought I was drawn to the Teeks. I was like, maybe the Teeks is what I want to do. So I went, and on one day, but the day before you go pledge, so they go out in the courtyard of the college, and they all the people who rush are out there, and the fraternities and the sororities will name out the people that you want. So if the Teeks named out Joshua Gresham, then I would walk towards them, and I would obviously not go to the Sig Eps, and so that was the Teek, and so then I would pledge for a certain period of time, become part of the fraternity. So before this process took place, I went down to the president of the fraternity, and I knocked on his door, and he came out, and I said, hey, man. I said, hey, I'm Joshua Gresham. I said, I'm Russian, you guys. He said, yeah, I'm familiar with you. And I said, yeah. So I said, I said, listen, I don't drink. So I've never tasted alcohol in my life. I don't drink. And I want to be a part of your fraternity, but I don't want to be pressured to do something I don't want to do. He said, man, I get it, and that's cool. I said, I want to be a pastor someday too. He's like, dude, we got a chaplain, and that would be perfect. And as a matter of fact, our chaplain right now is about to graduate, and he just drank for the first time 2 weeks ago. And I go, I'm out. And the guy was like, what? And I was like, I'm out. He's like, well, what do you mean? And I was like, dude, I don't want to drink. And if he drank 2 weeks ago, then it's just a matter of time, and I've just set this standard for me. Now, some of you are like, now he's going to tell us we can't drink alcohol. I get 4 questions every time someone wants to come to our church and they want to talk and they want to know more about it. Only one really matters. Only one matters out of those. And then the other 3 are just ridiculously stupid, and one of them is drinking. They always want to ask me, what do you feel about drinking? I don't care. Like some of you are like, well, I drink a glass of wine every night. Okay. Like I drink a beer. Today's Super Bowl. I'm going to drink a beer tonight. And I go, okay. We've been out, and we've passed people at New Year's Eve with cases in their hand. And they look at us. And they go, should you put one back? Should put all of them back. But one thing I've learned through this drinking thing, it's really been mind-blowing. Because my wife and I both have never tasted alcohol in our lives. We've just never done it, okay? It's not something we haven't done. We just chose not to do it. And we have reasons to back that up too. Like for us personally, we say, hey, you know what? We've actually had friends that have passed away, family members that have actually died. I've seen a lot of things take place around it that I kind of go, I don't really want to be a part of this. It definitely is a slippery slope. It's definitely something that kind of prolongs, or not prolongs, but it kind of is an escape, so it pushes maybe some of the feelings and emotions that you're going through. So that's one of the reasons why you drink. Like you go to it. But I do know this. Some people actually go to coffee to escape as well. Right? So I'll throw coffee underneath the bus. Some of you don't want me to throw Coca-Cola. I will. Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Mountain Dew. Some of you you use those as escapes to kind of escape reality. Maybe an energy boost or a coffee just wakes you up in the morning. Right? I mean, I get it. I understand. Right? Totally get it. TJ, you were a police officer, right? You were out there, right? You've arrested someone, maybe. Yeah, you're a good cop. Okay, good. Not today, bad guy. Get away. Good, TJ. I'm glad. So TJ, tell me, have you ever arrested someone coming out of Starbucks for having too much coffee? No, you haven't. No, I'll answer for you. You haven't. Have you ever had a domestic abuse? Noni, you're a police officer. Noni, have you ever had a domestic abuse case where someone drank too much coffee? Oh my God, here he goes again. Too much medium brew. He got into the dark side. Doesn't happen. But now is drinking coffee bad? I will say yes, it is. Drinking caffeine bad? Yes. I only drink H2O. You are a stud. Good job for you. I get it. I understand all of this. And that's what I'm saying. There's this mixed balance of what's right, what's wrong, what's too much, what's too little. I get this. But all I have to say is one thing I've learned from not drinking is that I've never actually told anyone not to drink. I haven't. In all of my days, I've never said, hey, you know what, maybe you should stop. I just kind of sit there and say, hey, okay, this is it. But one thing is so funny. When I'm out with people and they start drinking, they'll be like, why don't you drink? I don't want to. They say, but why not? Like I think you would be hilarious drunk. Thanks. I think. I don't know. But I've heard all this. I've heard it. And they go, come on. Gresham, hey, come on, try this right here. Try this. Try it. And like all night long, they want me to try alcohol. And at the very end, and I've done this multiple occasions, I always look at them and go, you know what's odd? Is that if you feel like I'm the one who's wrong in not drinking, I haven't once asked you to stop drinking, not once, but you're the one always pushing it on me. So my question is who's right or wrong in this circumstance? Like who really is? And it's an open-ended question. It's asking, it's rhetorical to that person. I'm just like, who do you think's right in this? And then before you know it, it's the end of the night and they kind of look at you and you go, you think I should drive home? No. And who drives them home? This guy, So there's a bit of a balance where I say, hey, you really need to sit back and ask yourselves, where do you stand morally? Where do you stand as this as an escape? Because there's a lot of escaping taking place in our world right now, and God has actually placed something before us that's awesome, and it's actually a standard of living that says, hey, be awesome, be great. Here's the way to do it. So, we're going to read more scriptures right here, and after I read the scripture, I'm going to blow your mind. Here we go. It's Matthew chapter 5, verse 13. And this is Jesus talking to everyone. This is after the Beatitudes, and he's kind of giving a really great explanation of just particular topics that are haunting that day. And the way he's explaining it is so amazing. Matthew chapter 5, verse 13. It says, you are the salt of the earth. You are the salt of the earth. But what good is salt if it has lost its flavor? Can you make it salty again? It will be thrown out and trampled underfoot as worthless. You are the light of the world, like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your good deeds shine out for all to see, so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father. Salty, flavor. There's something about this. Your light being bright and shining for all to see. Guys, there's a great example in this book called Weird. And this book is so great. Hits everything perfectly. Guys, do you know there's so many single people out in this world? There's a lot of single people. And it's actually increased in comparison to in the past. And the reason why it's increased is because there's been a shift in standards. There's been a shift in everything. I used our children's pastor as an example last service, Miss Christian. She is the epitome of a perfect girl that's a Christian seeking after a good, righteous man that loves Jesus. Like, she is great. And I pray every day for Christian to meet the perfect man. But here's what's happened. And it's actually, unfortunately, it's grown into our marriages. And that's why we're having divorce rates that are so high. But it's this idea of you're single, live it up, do everything you can to feed this body. Do more and more and more and more and more and more and more. Like, try to do as much as you can before you get married. Once you get married, it's all downhill and it's going to stink. And so now there's all these options of what you want to do in life. And now I know there's obviously a time period where a single individual needs to be selfish in order to find themselves, in order to find what they want to do in life so they can be successful. I get this, okay? But then there is a maturity step. But there's a shift, because now there's such a select few like Christian looking for other individuals with a moral standard that's relatable to the Bible, that they're so scarce. They're spread out and they're everywhere, but they're so like few and far between. So then there's a lot of singles within churches hopping from church to church, becoming useless, because all they want to do is just basically come in here and it's a meat factory. It's like, is there any hot ones? Anyone decent? Nope, I'm out, next church. They're not sewing in, and they're not getting rooted and grounded and stuff. But then there's also the other side. There's this other group of singles running around, killing themselves, suffocating themselves slowly. And the example that's used is this, like a piece of tape. A piece of tape, when it's first stuck, is stuck. It's good. It's solid. But then when you peel it off, there's some sticky residue left behind, and then you stick that piece of tape again, more residue left behind, and the more and more and more that you use it, the less it actually has any worth. And then if you've ever seen a piece of tape on the ground that fell off the wall, it's got dirt and dust and that's all it actually can still collect. Even though it won't stick on a wall anymore, but it does actually collect dirt. It's odd, isn't it? Hair, it's like that one hair. I'm going there. I'm going. Man, I want you guys to get the picture. Oh, you're like, oh, what is this? You're not worth anything anymore. You've lost it. And the reason why you've lost it is because you've accepted this world. You've accepted the standards of this world, and you just kind of you've been used. And that's where, when we get into marriages as well, it's like we continue to keep pulling apart from one another. We let issues come in, and we pull ourselves apart, and we keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it until finally there's just no more stickiness. And the reason why we keep allowing things to slip in is because we sneak a peek on things on the computer. We sneak a peek with relationships that are our workplace. We start bad-mouthing our significant other to others when it's odd, because if I was like, hey, JC, my wife's like horrible. And he's like, yeah, women stink. And he's like, doesn't even know Anna. Like, you don't even know Anna's middle name. You don't know her birthday. You don't know anything about her. You don't know the high school she graduated from. But you work with me, so you should know me. Let me tell you all about my wife. And you just start spewing all this out. And before you know it, JC, he has an issue with Michelle because it's like he has a bad moment with Michelle. Yeah, women stink. We should just give them all up. And then he starts feeding me trash. And then I'm kind of like, yeah, my wife, she's horrible. All women are just silly. I almost said stupid. I know. But seriously, this is what happens. And the stickiness takes us apart from one another because we sit here. And we also allow our workplace in general, all the busyness of life, to take us away and separate us from so long that it's hard for us to stick and show each other our love. Listen, it goes the same way even in pre-marriage. And that's the reason why the church and a lot of folks, the standard of this world is have as many partners as you can before you get married because it's your last one. And that's so sad. It's sad that that's where it's gotten, where it's do as much as you can before you get married because that's it. That's the final thing. I'm going to tell you right now, marriage is awesome. It is the greatest. I found myself running one time when Dave was like 20 years old, back out in the day we were running, and we stopped, we were taking a breath, and so this kid that was running with us asked me how marriage was, and Dave's like, before you start, he's like, don't tell me marriage stinks, and don't tell me that sex after marriage is not that great, or it's not this horrible, because I am saving myself, and I'm waiting, and I've heard from other people about how marriages are this, and it's all downhill, because don't you even start. I look at him and I go, I'm not. Give me some credit. You got to work with it. It's hard, but it's fun and it's great. But there's one thing I had to work with. See, my wife was a virgin when we got married, and I wasn't. I had lost some of my stickiness. I had pulled apart, and unfortunately, I had to work through this. Do I still think about it today? Unfortunately, I do. There's moments I think about it and I go, God, I wish I never would have done that. I wish I never would have done this. All because I just want me and my wife. That's it. That's all I wanted. How's my wife overlooked that and forgiven me? Absolutely. And has God forgiven me? Yes, absolutely. That's the greatest thing about this gospel and the greatest thing about this message with Jesus Christ. Now, the key ingredient is to now not just know that you're forgiven, but now to work on it. See, I could easily go into my marriage with my wife and go, hey, this is great. This is great. God forgave me. Okay, but not change. See, now I've got to change. And my wife and I have got to work on our stickiness. We've got to put things in there that's godly, that keeps us together, that keeps us holy, and has a standard that actually is worthy, and we see results and blessings in the fruit of it. We see all this. That's what's going to be the difference maker. So that's why my wife forgives me and forgets about it. And that's why even though the devil will come in my head and be like, you aren't worthy, and you did this, and you stink, and all this, you've lost some of your stickiness, you've given it to other people, and all this stuff, and I'm like, oh, it's so in my head, and I just look at it, in the name of Jesus, I rebuke that. I'm not going to allow that to separate myself from my wife, and I'm going to stick there. Some of you are like, well, I'm good. My wife and I are good. That's great. Keep it up. And if you're single, keep it up. Stay good. But there's a lot of things out there that slip in, and they try to pull you away. Social media is good at it. It's like you've got a lot of people out there that will do a lot of selfies. And they're basically they're basically slow pitching to you. They're doing the slow pitch. And what they want at the end of the selfie is they want you to be like, you look hot. Got all these married women going. Or, I'm sorry, they're not doing that. They're doing this. And what they're doing is they're throwing softball pitches. They're throwing these little, hey, maybe that cute guy from high school will see how awesome I look now. I've grown up. I have money. I can fix my hair and go to the salon. It's like $500 and buy extra stuff. And then, you're waiting. And then maybe some of you are just innocent. And I know some women in here are just innocent. You're like, well, I just take photos because it's just fun. And I get it. I just like having it on there. I get it. But then when the slow pitch goes out and you don't realize that you're slow pitching, and all of a sudden someone hits it, and you're kind of like, I can't believe that they put that on there. Whoa. And then another one, and before you know it, it opens the door. It does. That's why you've got to be careful of that standard and setting it all up, because, guys, the world is trying to kill us. And it's going to do everything it can to separate us from what is good. And that's why Jesus gave us really good, clear things. And he was a weird guy at the time. Jesus came down and he actually shared things with people that made them go, that's not the way it is. And Jesus is like, I know it's not the way it is, but this is the way it should be. And he actually says it all here in Luke chapter 6, verse 27. It says, but to you who are willing to listen, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who hurt you. If someone slaps you on one cheek, offer the other cheek also. If someone demands your coat, offer your shirt also. Give to anyone who asks, and when things are taken away from you, don't try to get them back. Even in today, we're taught, man, someone punch you, you punch them back. Someone cut you off, let me cut them off too. Someone steals something from me, well, I'll steal something from them. We're setting these crazy, obscure standards to say this is okay, and even Jesus says, do the opposite, be different. It's not going to be easy to do this, and that's why Jesus says you're going to be persecuted for my name's sake, because what I'm trying to do is change your thinking. You know how hard it was probably for David Fleming in the movie to look around, and there was other guys. It wasn't just he and I. There was other guys in the movie with us, and he was the one that was like, put his head down. That was different. That was weird. Come on, dude, they're just in bikinis. They're not naked. Right? That would be the excuse most of us would use. Oh, come on, dude, you've been to the beach before, right? He said, but that's not what I want. Because what happens is you start looking at those images over and over and over again, and then you start looking at it and you're kind of like, why doesn't my wife look like that? And I'm not going to just throw all these men under the bus. Ladies, let's talk about this. If you're like, Ryan Gosling, he's so cute. And I love that movie where he takes off his shirt. And I can't wait, here comes that part. Yeah. Anything that arouses you, anything that takes your attention off what is really good, if that stuff is getting an arousing nature to come out of you, where you're like, oh man, that was pretty cute. And I get it. And just some of you are like, oh, what is Ryan Gosling? You're like, you don't find him cute. All right, fine. Brad Pitt, Matthew McConaughey, whoever else you find hot and attractive, and men, I get it. Heidi Klum, Jessica Biel, whoever those girls are. Some of you are like, Jessica Biel? Yeah, back off. My wife and I, we actually have a thing that we've talked about. This is not some controlling thing. And you can talk to my wife. She'll tell you, Josh, don't tell me what to do. And my wife doesn't tell me what to do. We talk things out. But my wife and I, we both agreed, we're not going to sit there and have some celebrity crush. That's our thing. We don't have a celebrity crush. We don't look at each other, and we it's not that idea that if you ever saw them out in public, am I allowed to kiss them or not? Like I've heard married couples actually do this. It's like, well, if I ever find Ryan Gosling and he's okay with kissing me, my husband said it was okay. You're messed up, all right? But my wife and I set this before us because why? It's not healthy. It's not healthy. It's not. I remember there was a moment my wife knew. She said, "What was your celebrity crush back in high school? What was it?" And I was like, Heidi Klum. And she's like, "Really, Heidi Klum?" I go, "Yeah." So years later, she had one of those moments. And ladies, you all have these moments. Men have these moments too. It's just different. But the lady, she had this moment. She didn't feel pretty, right? It was this pretty moment. And she goes, "I'm sorry, I'm not like Heidi Klum." And I'm on the couch, and I kind of like, it was seriously like, what in the world? And I look at her and I go, "Baby, if I wanted to marry Heidi Klum, I would marry Heidi Klum." And she looks at me, she goes, "You think you could have married Heidi Klum?" And I go, "I married you." But that's the thing. You don't let these wedges come in your relationships where it hurts you. And some of you kind of like, oh, it's just innocent to have a celebrity crush. It's just innocent. It's not. Because it does creep, or it's an obsession. You should be obsessed with your significant other. I want my wife to know I'm in love with her. I'm obsessed with her. Like, I can't wait to be around her. I'm obsessed with her. That's who I can't wait to come home and see. Is that wrong? Is that wrong? Seriously, is that wrong? No, it's not wrong. Not at all. So what? Now you're clicking. Now it's kind of like, oh, I get it. Now I need to stop obsessing. I need to stop thinking about this stuff. It's not easy for a pastor. Listen, as a pastor, it's easy for me to come in and just teach you a faith message. Get over your addiction, over your, blah, blah. I can easily preach one of these messages and everyone go home. Like, that was a good message. That was solid. It's definitely harder for me to sit up here and tell you, hey, stop obsessing over celebrities. Stop doing drugs. Stop looking at sexual things. Stop with the abusiveness of substances, of alcohol. Rethink those things. Caffeine, rethink those things. Because next week you guys could all leave and then I have to go find a job at Chick-fil-A. I get it. That's the truth. If all of a sudden the door's shut, Dave just got on staff, he's getting paid, and he's doing all this stuff, and I look at Dave and said, "Dave, guess what? We got to shut the doors. We got to find jobs out in the world, and we got to do something." This is it. I preached this message, and now everyone's out. Years ago, I preached a message, and I brought up a particular political thing that dealt with Muslims, and I mentioned it in the sanctuary here. At the end of the message, this person came up to me and they said, "I want you to know that you don't, as a pastor, you don't have any right to talk about any of that in the pulpit." And I look at him and I go, "Yeah, I do. Because I'm the shepherd to this flock right here, And I need to make sure that you guys understand what this world is trying to do. And all I was trying to say was stop believing that all ways lead to heaven when they don't. Someone's kind of like, Muslim's not too far different from Christianity. Yeah, it is. It's like really different. So it's something you guys need to be aware of, rather than just accepting what the world tells you. And some of you are kind of like, so you're a Fox News guy. I'm a no news guy. So I'll tell you right now, Fox News is still full of it too. And so is CNN. So is all of them. They're all full of it. And they're all just trying to sell their next product on their commercial in between their segments. So with this idea that this guy's a Christian, so he must be a Republican as well. I like Ron Paul, if you really want my real. Then be like, oh, no, he should have said that out of the pulpit. I did. I kind of like Ron Paul. Guys, these are the things that we as a church need to discuss, because this is the stuff that's suffocating us. And this is when we go, I don't know what's right from wrong. I don't know what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing. So what I'm telling you to do is rethink what you do every day. Step back and say, do I have to do this? Do I feel a draw to do this? Do I feel like I have to when I shouldn't? Spend more time with your significant other rather than get away from them. Guys, this is the stuff that we've got to work through. And I really don't mean to step on your toes and hurt you and offend you and to come across like this dogmatic way. I don't want that. But the bottom line is the standard of this world working? It's not. If what they're telling us to do every single day, is that working? No, it's not. Because why is it that the news channels every single year do the same type of news stuff every single time? It's the same thing. New Year's Eve, New Year's resolution, how to lose weight. Well, what you showed me last year, didn't that work? That's not good anymore. There's a new way to do it. There's a new way. There's always something. And they're totally, constantly increasing it onto you and pushing the newest thing. And all you're doing is just growing your standards. Saying, moral value, it's okay. It's not okay. So I really want you guys, if you don't have this book, Weird, I want you to buy it. I want you to read it. If you're not a part of our Trail Guide groups, I encourage you to rethink this. It's a good opportunity for you to get a hold of a lot of good material. But it's something that we're going to discuss this next month. And some of it's not going to be easy for me to want to say. Because I know where we stand as the world. And many of you are going to go, I like watching these movies. And I don't see a problem with me and how I post things on social media. And I don't see a problem in the way I dress and the way I wear. And that's understandable. But I will bring out some scriptures that will help us through this process. Because like I said earlier, is it really healthy for us to obsess about things that will tear us apart from the reality that we live in today? Let's pray.